everyone. Now we will talk about the Philippine Declaration of Independence, which was created in May to June 1898, presented in June 12, 1898 in the town of Cavite El Viejo, province of Cavite, commissioned by Emilio Aguinaldo, ratified in August 1, 1898 at first ratification in Bacoor, Cavite, September 29, 1898, the official ratified by the Malolos Congress. Now we'll talk about the author, which is Ambrosio Rianzares Bautista, also known as Don Bosco, was the lawyer and the author of the Declaration of Philippine Independence, a distant relative of the Rizal family. Born in December 7, 1830, and died in December 4, 1903 at the age of 72. So Bautista solicited funds to finance a campaign for reforms in the Philippines, later becoming a member of La Liga Filipina, Cuerpo de Compromisarios, and La Propaganda. In 1896, the Spaniards arrested and imprisoned him at Fort Santiago, as he was suspected of being involved in the Philippine Revolution. Bautista elected to defend himself and was later released from prison. And in 1898, Bautista became the first advisor to President Emilio Aguinaldo and subsequently wrote the Declaration of the Philippine Independence. Contrary to common belief, it was Bautista and not Aguinaldo who waved the Philippine flag before the jubilant crowd on June 12, 1898 during the Philippine proclamation of the independence in Cavite. On July 14, 1899, Bautista was elected to the position of the president in Tarlac's Revolutionary Congress and was later appointed judge of the court of the first instance of Pangasinan. So, the purpose of this declaration is to proclaim the sovereignty and independence of the Philippines from the colonial rule of the Spanish Empire and the 333 years of Spanish colonizations. This document signature is signed by 98 delegates. 96 are pure Filipinos, are the other 2 are United States Army officers who witnessed the declaration. USA Mr. L.M. Johnson, Colonel of Artillery.
Every year, the country commemorates the anniversary of the Philippine independence, proclaimed on June 12, 1898 in the province of Cavite. Indeed, as such event, significant turning point of the history in the Philippines because it signals the end of the 333 years of Spanish colonization. The Declaration of Independence is the document in which Filipino revolutionary forces under General Emilio Aguinaldo proclaimed the sovereignty and independence of the Philippine island from colonial rule in Spain. The declaration is not recognized by the United States or Spain because of the Treaty of Paris, in which the Spaniards will hand over the Philippines to the Americans. And that document is originally written by the author in Spanish. There have been numerous studies done on the events leading to the independence of the country, but very few students had a chance to read the actual document of the declaration. This is in spite the historical importance of the document and the details that the document reveals on the rationale and circumstances of the historical day in Cavite. Interestingly, reading the details of the said document, it tells the kind of government created under Aguinaldo and the forthcoming hand of the United States of America in the next few years of the newly created republic. The declaration was a short 2,000-word document which was summarized the reason behind the revolution against Spain, the war for independence, and the future of the new republic under Emilio Aguinaldo. The proclamation commenced the characterization of the condition in the Philippines during the Spanish colonial period. The document specifically mentioned abuses and the inequality in the colony. The declaration says, taking into consideration that their inhabitants being already weary bearing the ominous yoke of Spanish domination on account of arbitrary arrest and harsh treatment practiced by civil guard to the extent of causing death, with the connivance and even the express orders their commanders, who sometimes went to the extreme ordering and shooting of prisoners under the pretext that they are attempting to escape in violations of the provisions of the regulations of the corps, which abuses were unpunished and on account of the unjust deportations, especially those decreed by General Blanco of eminent personages of high social position at the instigation of archbishop and friars interested in keeping them out of the way of their own selfish and avaricious purpose. Deportations in which quickly brought about a method of procedure more exactable than that of the acquisition and which every civilized nation rejects on account of decision being rendered without a hearing of the persons accused. The passage demonstrates the justification behind the revolution against Spain, specifically cited the abuse of civil guards and the unlawful shooting of prisoners whom they alleged attempting to escape. The passage also condemned the unequal protection of law of the Filipino people and the eminent personages. Moreover, it also mentioned the avarice of creed and clergy like friars and archbishops himself. Lastly, the passage condemns that this saw was the unjust deportations and rendering of the other decision without proper hearing expected of civilized nation. From here, the declaration proceeded with a brief historical overview. Some historical background that was mentioned on the article is General Emilio Aguinaldo was against the Spaniards. It all began from Mactan, Cebu, where Ferdinand Magellan first stepped foot in the Philippines and lost the battle with Lapu-Lapu, and that battle was the reason why the Spaniard, especially San Miguel Lopez de Legazpi, terrorizing the Philippines. The task that Magellan could finish was accomplished by Legazpi through the Blood Compact that brought fear, slavery, and discrimination towards the Filipinos for over 300 years. Second is the Spain-American War. The Declaration of Independence has already happened, but we are far from free from the reign of the Spaniard. The Spaniards, that is why Emilio Aguinaldo cooperated with the American to help the Philippines take break control from their current ruling to the country. Emilio Aguinaldo reunites the Filipinos to fight against the Spaniards with the help of the Americans, without the Philippines knowing that the America made a back deal with the Spaniards. Also, the document has specific details about the latter, especially after the compact of Biak na Bato had collapsed. The documentary is spread a movement like electric spark through different sounds like and provinces like Bataan, Pampanga, Batangas, Bulacan, Laguna, and Moro, and a quick decline of Spanish forces in the same provinces. The revolt also reached Visayas, thus the independence of the country was ensured. The document also mentioned results of execution, calling it unjust. The execution, as written in the document, done to please the greedy body of friars and their insatiable desire to seek revenge upon the exterminate all those who are opposed to their Machiavellian purposes, which tramples upon the penal codes prescribes for these islands. The document also narrates the Cavite Mutiny of January 1872 that caused the infamous execution of the martyr native priests Jose Borges, Mariano Gomez, and Jacinto Zamora, or, or the so-called Gombarza, whose innocent blood was shed through the intrigues of the so-called religious orders that incited the three secular priests in the said mutiny. The Proclamation of Independence also invokes that the established republic will be led under the dictatorship of Emilio Aguinaldo, first mentioned at the very beginning of the proclamation, which stated, "In the town of Cavite Viejo, in this province of Cavite, on 12th day of June 1898, before me, Don Ambrosio Rianzares Bautista, Auditor of War and Special Commissioner appointed to proclaim and solemnize this act by dictatorial government of these Philippine Islands, for the purposes and by virtue of the circular addressed by eminent dictator of the same Don Emilio Aguinaldo E. Fami." The same was repeated toward the last part of the proclamation. "We recognize, approve, and ratify with all the orders emanating from the same the dictatorship established by Don Emilio Aguinaldo, whom we reversed at the supreme head of this nation, which today begins to have a life of its own in the convection, and he has been the instrument chosen by God, in spite of his humble origin, to effectuate the redemption of his unfortunate country, as foretold by Dr. Don Jose Rizal in his magnificent verses, which he composed in this present cell prior to his execution, liberating it from the yoke of Spanish domination."
So the important information found in the document are the Declaration of Independence Day, which means that we are no longer fall under any reign of foreigners. It is also known as the Battle of Cries of Filipino. The second one is the Philippine flag that symbolizes that we are Filipino and we will be free. So independence was proclaimed on June 12, 1898, around 4:45 p.m. of the afternoon, at the ancestral home of General Emilio Aguinaldo, 30 kilometers from Manila, together with the unfurled flag of the Philippines made in Hong Kong, together with by Marcela Goncillo, Lorenzo Goncillo, and Delfina Herbosa. So let's proceed to the explanation of the flag that was first waved on the same day. The document explains the following. It was the result of animosity that means that this nation is already free and independent. The colors found in the Philippine flag signifies different meaning. The white signifies for the famous society of Katipunan, while the three stars signifies Luzon, Mindanao, and Panay, while the eight rays of suns signifies the province of Manila, Cavite, Bulacan, Pampanga, Nueva Ecija, Bataan, and Laguna, and lastly we have the Batangas, while the blue, red, white colors represents the manifestation of great nation. The Philippine flag has also a rectangular design which is white equilateral triangle, and it symbolizes the liberty, equality, and fraternity, while the horizontal blue stripe is for peace, truth, and justice. While the Philippine national anthem is Lupang Hinirang, it was played during the proclamation on June 12, 1898, and composed by Julian Felipe, adapted from Spanish, and written by Jose Felipe in 1890. The contribution and relevance of the document are Philippine independence, Philippine identities, and the achievements of Mr. Emilio Aguinaldo. It was also written there that Philippine attracts foreign invaders because of what we have. offer in terms of natural resources. So let's proceed to the relevance of the document. It is important for us students to recognize the proclamation of the Independence Day and why we are celebrating their achievements in every June 12th of the year.